flag which it says one nation under God.
I'd like to call the October 18th meeting of Coatesville Redevelopment Authority to order. We did conduct an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss legal, real estate, and we should have minutes from September 20th. Okay. Questions, deletions, additions, motion? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Yeah, okay, Joe's abstaining from that. We have some accounts payable here that have been provided for us. There are two things that are not listed in our accounts payable, which is prepared for us. And that is the trees were removed, and we had approved that previously for $2,600. Is that correct, Ruthann?
Yes.
Also, we have had a Benoni payment come in from PennDOT, and the funds should clear tomorrow. Or is that correct, Ruthann?
Yes.
So she's prepared that check. How much was the Benoni check? 300.
300,900.09.
And that was an invoice that I submitted through Dot Grants, and we got the money. Okay, but they're not shown on here. I just want to make sure everybody's aware that those two things are being paid. Questions on the payables? Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the council payable with any necessary corrections and revisions with the 2 recent additions.
Thank you, Ricky. Could I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Jack. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We do have a deletion from our new business. Letter E is in Edward, and that's the Coatesville Associates. That will probably come up in our November meeting. It's not ready for us at this time, so I'd like to delete that from the agenda if we may. E.
Okay.
Action on agreement with Coatesville Associates. We do have a presentation from Idg Development. I believe that's Crosby. And you have Mike on here also, correct?
Yeah, I'm actually going to let Michael lead the way when it comes to our zoning text amendment that we have circulated.
Okay.
Michael?
Hello, how are you?
Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, there.
Can't hear you, though, Mike.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear Michael for some reason.
Can you hear us?
I can.
Can you hear us at all, Michael? You can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Try it now.
Can you hear me now? I can hear you.
Yes, there we go, Michael.
All right, great. Well, good evening, everyone, and firstly, can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go, Michael.
All right, great. All right, well, as I was saying, good evening, everyone, and firstly, thank you very much for accommodating my participation via Zoom. I'm getting some feedback. They're saying, good evening, everyone, and firstly, thank you very much for accommodating my participation via Zoom. I'm getting some feedback. They're saying, good evening, everyone, and firstly, thank you very much. Should I keep going now?
Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Let's test it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Test it.
As I was saying, thank you very much for letting.
Michael, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. As I was just saying, thank you very much
Test it.
for letting me participate. Thank you very much for letting.
Michael, can you hear me?
Okay. I think hi. All right, can you hear me now? All right, this is Michael calling in on phone. Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay, I see Zeke nodding his head, so I'm going to assume that means you can hear me. Great. So again, thank you very much for letting me participate by computer and phone. We have prepared since the last meeting, since the last RDA meeting, we have prepared the proposed text amendment that we are going to present to City Council. We forwarded that to Lou and everyone else, I believe last week, if not the week before. And hopefully everybody has had a chance to take a look at that. That proposed amendment would essentially take the shell, which is the existing FR overlay district, and replace what's in that shell right now, what's in that FR overlay district ordinance right now, clean that out entirely and put this new text into the overlay district. That old text, the language that's in the existing FR overlay district, presumably was crafted and enacted by City Council with a prior plan in mind. That language that's in the existing ordinance references a lot of prior planning documents, which frankly, we don't think very likely have anything to do with the proposal that's currently going to be before the city. So what we did was, as opposed to getting rid of the concept of an FR overlay district, we kept that concept. We identified the parcels that would be part of that overlay district, and we created regulations that would facilitate this particular plan. I don't have any problem saying that, because I think that the district that we have, that the FR overlay district that we would have, is large enough that there are some very, very good planning rationales, planning arguments for why we want to create an FR overlay district that suits this particular property and this particular project. So what you see there is a series of use regulations. We've added the concept of a performing arts use, and we've added a definition for a performing arts use, because we know that there is the strong possibility that the NSEC project will not only be used for the Velodrome and for regional and national sports events, but it will also be used for arts performances. So that's a concept that hadn't been in the prior FR district, but which we're proposing to add now. We also added area and bulk concepts to the overlay district, which fit this particular proposal. So we have an impervious coverage, for instance, that is as high as 90%. That's consistent, by the way, with what had been, with what City Council had previously approved for the FR overlay district. And obviously, we think it makes sense here as well. We have perhaps the most significant departure from prior regulations that you would see is in parking. There would have been a need for a number of parking variances had we stayed with existing regulations. But what we've done is say that we can have parking to the rear of the site, essentially parking in every place that you see it on the plan would be permitted if this ordinance were to be adopted. We've made note for pedestrian access. We've made certain that the ordinance requires that there be sidewalks along the Lincoln Highway frontage, and incorporating the concept from the redevelopment agreement itself, we've inserted a requirement that there be pedestrian connections between the NSEC project and the central business, the C2 Central Business District. So we think that this is a really good starting place for our conversations with the city. It is our intention to submit this proposed text amendment to City Council through Mr. Logan as early as tomorrow morning. But when we transmit this text amendment to the city, hopefully again as early as tomorrow, we'd like to do so with the representation that the Redevelopment Authority Board supports the text amendment. And in order to do that, it was important to come before you to share the text amendment with you, obviously answer any questions you might have, perhaps make any alterations that you might think necessary, and then we would go ahead and submit it to the city. We anticipate that city process obviously is going to include the Planning Commission. It's obviously going to include the County Planning Commission, and obviously it's going to include City Council. At the City Planning Commission and at City Council, we expect there to be, and hope that there will be, a large amount of public involvement as we talk about the vision for the flats, and we move from vision to plan to ultimately to land development plan. But throughout that process, we want to be able to say that what we're proposing has the RDA's support, and that's why we're here tonight. So I'm going to stop talking and see if anybody has any questions or comments that we can kick around. Hopefully you heard me through all of that and I haven't been on mute.
Michael, can you hear me?
I can. Hopefully you could. Hopefully you just heard me.
There appears to be a discrepancy between the text amendment and the redevelopment agreement on the UPI numbers.
Yeah.
You could
So
double check that. And we're looking at the plan that, you know, the concept plan, and it's kind of, you know, you're showing parking under the railroad trestle. I'm not so certain that you're good. Well, I think you're going to have to get Amtrak approval. I don't know what they're going to say about that. So, you know, you're probably going to need further review by the city engineer or traffic engineer or something there. And it's kind of difficult to see how you're going to get from the main entrance to the downtown. I mean, I see one little piece of sidewalk labeled, and then I see stone wall, and I see one crosswalk from the handicap spaces to the front of the building. But beyond that, I don't know how I walk out the main entrance and get to the sidewalk leading into the downtown. You know, I mean, that's just a couple of things that we noticed on the plan that you know, need to be worked out, the traffic flow and the pedestrian flow shown a little more clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the pedestrian connections, there will be points of pedestrian connection, and what we're showing conceptually right now is points of pedestrian connection from the downtown to the site, either through the Riverwalk or through sidewalks along the the Lincoln frontage. As we advance this, and perhaps we're coming to the point where it makes sense to do this now, for obvious reasons, we wanted to sort of take these first steps into the zoning process before we get too far down the road with planning, but maybe it makes sense to do it right now. There will be a pedestrian circulation plan, which shows exactly what you're talking about, Mr. DiSciullo. Running, you know, once an individual gets from downtown to the point of contact with the flats, how does that person then circulate through the flats property? You know, in other words, we're not just sort of dumping people at the corner and saying, make your own way through the site. You're absolutely right. There needs to be a pedestrian circulation plan, an on-site pedestrian circulation plan. And perhaps there needs to be multiple points of contact between the downtown and the site.
Mike,
with regard to
the other thing we want to make sure is if we are going to, if the board decides to give you support for your text amendment, that makes no change to the redevelopment agreement.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, the redevelopment agreement is clear. It can only be amended through another written agreement.
I can try to elaborate a little bit more. So with the hotel site, that is kind of that footprint there is been put there to memorialize the good faith interest in doing that development. But the reality is that we still need to, with the splash pad, it makes far more sense to be able to reposition that pad site such that we have you can actually, when you drive in to the hotel, like we don't have any kind of thoroughfare shown here at this point with in front of the hotel as would be customary with like a portico and all that good stuff, because we haven't designed, remove the Riverwalk from the design, the splash pad from the design, nor with the setbacks and the fencing. So there's plenty of additional design work around the hotel at this point. But the reality is that coming out of the arena, there's accessible sidewalk ramp that goes down to the sidewalk. Generally speaking, we intend to have the sidewalk on both the north and the south side of Lincoln Highway, which is basically the primary pedestrian thoroughfare between the cities, the downtown and the site, because there's only one bridge. And we will enhance that connection. And I know that it was a concern, from the very beginning that we want to connect this site downtown.
Life, baby.
I have a lot of interest in personal interest, frankly, biased interest in seeing that happen.
Hi.
So, Michael, then the UPI discrepancy, you're good with that to get those in line?
Yeah, so
Certainly, you're
on that
going to need a review by the city engineer for traffic and so forth as you further develop this. A pedestrian circulation plan, and no changes to the redevelopment authority if we support your text amendments.
yeah, so the last of those is very, very clear. There's no amendment to the redevelopment agreement, except and unless there's a formal amendment to the agreement. The UPI numbers, we included everything that's either owned by the redevelopment authority or owned by Activated New Heritage in that area. And again, there was a thought process to make this as broad as possible. As far as Amtrak goes, just today I initiated the outreach to Amtrak. I have a call into their director of real estate in Philadelphia explaining who I am and why I'm calling. So that should kick that off. We have discussed internally as a team what it would mean if we weren't able to do parking or access underneath the trestle bridge in that area. It doesn't appear to be, it will be challenging to be sure, but at this point in time, it's not as if the entire northern side of the trestle bridge is off limits at that point. But it certainly would present a challenge, to be clear. So those are all the things that we're aware of, but these are the first steps that we need to take to ultimately reach a land development approval from City Council. If we're not able to go the text amendment route, which is clearly the preference that we go in the direction that we're going in, then we would need to go to the City Zoning Hearing Board for variance relief. And for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the time involved with doing that and the uncertainty involved in doing that. Clearly, the text amendment process for such a major project, this isn't a one-off project where there are going to be unintended consequences from a text amendment. This is a major project for the city, and it's appropriate to do it through an amendment to the zoning ordinance as opposed to going to the zoning hearing board. So for all of those reasons, we are looking forward to getting this thing submitted to the city again as early as tomorrow morning, getting it referred out to the City Planning Commission and also to the County Planning Commission, getting reviews from the city engineer, from the township, from the County Planning Commission, and ultimately I think we're on a timeline that if everything shakes out the way we hope, we could be looking at an ordinance adoption process by the end of the year, beginning of 2022. If that happens within that time frame, then we can move very swiftly into the land development phase, which I would expect to take several months as we then work on traffic and lighting and landscaping and all of the issues you would normally see in land development. But again, the first steps are this text amendment, and we have to take them in this order.
Any questions, gentlemen, for Michael?
I just have one about, is this standard procedure that we use? I mean, like,
Yeah,
give me an example
for-
this is par for the course for this type of project.
yeah, certainly for a project of this size and a project of, if I may, a project that's this important to all of the stakeholders, going through the text amendment process is appropriate. There is an FR overlay district. Clearly, City Council previously expressed the intent that the zoning regulations for the redevelopment of the flats would be dealt with in the zoning ordinance, not just in the C2 or the R4 or the I zoning regulations. So it is entirely appropriate for this type of project to be going through text amendment as opposed to going through the zoning hearing board.
Okay, thank you.
I would, since we're already on IDG, and it is letter D under new business for us tonight, I would make a motion to support their text amendment contingent upon verification of the UPI numbers, that what's in the redevelopment agreement and what's in the text amendment match. And subject to getting a pedestrian circulation, traffic circulation plan as they move forward. And of course, review by the city and RDA.
One other clarification, Mr. Chairman. I think Michael had mentioned that the redeveloper has added some land to the proposed text amendment scope that you would want to have covered by the text amendments in addition to what's in the redevelopment agreement. I don't know if you can hear me, Michael. Crosby heard it.
Yeah, sort of fading in and out, but I think I got the gist of it. Was that we added parcels beyond those that are the subject of the redevelopment agreement.
Yes, if you want to voluntarily do that.
Yes, we did add those parcels. We included others that are already owned by entities that Crosby is affiliated with. And again, the reason for that is anytime that you're doing a text amendment to a zoning ordinance, you want to be as broad as possible in terms of the size of the district that you're creating or regulating. You certainly don't want to be regulating on a small lot by small lot basis. And we wanted to leave open the possibility that those other parcels could be, maybe, not that they're definitely going to, but maybe they could be incorporated into the development. They're certainly not contemplated to be right now, but we didn't want to close that opportunity.
So Mr. Chairman, if you'll accept that minor clarification to your motion to support, subject to the verification of UPIs, including the additional lands mentioned by Michael Gill, and subject to the redeveloper cooperating with the redevelopment authority and producing in the future a pedestrian plan and a traffic circulation and parking plan that are going to be subject to the RDA and city reviewing them in the future.
Certainly, I would make that motion. I got a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jack. All those in favor of giving support to IDG's text amendment with the contingencies that we just outlined? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, so we're good there. Thank you.
All right.
That takes letter D
Again-
off our public agenda. If we want to get back
Again,
on, do we
thank-
have any
thank-
citizens'
thank-
comments on agenda items? Okay. Informational items on the train station are that we're gonna have a groundbreaking February 22nd, this Friday at 10:30 in the morning on the Third Avenue side. So anyone that can make it, please do come. I'm sure you'll be there, Linda. New business. Consider the adoption resolution for PennDOT grant application. That's the resolution we need for Colleen to apply for the $2 million grant. Could I get a motion on that resolution? Thank you, Joe. Could I get a second? Thank you, Ricky. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have a redevelopment agreement for 300 East Lincoln Highway. It's a $10,000 deposit, a $300,000 purchase price. Closing before March of 2022. With construction to be completed within 18 months, I believe, after that. That's the plan that we had discussed previously, 3-story commercial building, 8,000 square foot footprint with retail on the bottom floor and offices above. Could I get a motion to approve that redevelopment agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve that Brandywine, not Brandywine. The 300 project.
Thank you, Jack. Could I get a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The next thing we have on our agenda is a Brandywine Dam inspection by Cedarville. That's a $2,500, I believe, cost to have that inspection done.
25% of that's reimbursable.
And yes, we will get 25% of that back from Cleveland Cliffs. Yeah, it's $2,500 cost. The trees were removed today from the wall, which Cedarville had recommended in their previous inspection. Could I get a motion on? Thank you, Ricky. Could I get a second? I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We already did IDG text amendment. Last thing we have is to consider action for the RDA consent of Mark Lane to increase the financing limit to $700,000 for the record building. I think Lou's gonna call.
Dialing now.
There we go.
Hello, this is Lane speaking.
Hi, Lane. This is Louis Cotemal calling from Coatesville City Hall. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I am going to put, well, you're on speakerphone now. Ruthann, can you hear this? Is the reporter picking it up? Okay. Okay, we are recording the meeting, Lane, just so that you know you're, that we've gotten to your item in the agenda regarding the request for Mark Lane for financing consent of the RDA up to $700,000 for the benefit of the Redevelopment Authority Board. There's provisions in the redevelopment agreement for 204, 206 Lincoln Highway that require the redeveloper to get consent for financing in connection with the project to the extent that lender wants to record further documents to secure their loan. So with that, Lane, I have you on speaker now, and I think the board can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so if you could give a little background about where things stand with the project and why you're asking for the increase now to 700,000.
Sure. We expect to close with President's Bank on a loan for $420,000, as we had indicated, in the next few weeks. Between getting plans together with our chef and with the getting the liquor license finalized with an extension of premises, as well as getting a tenant in for axe throwing and splitting edge axe throwing, which they have a couple other locations, including one in Malvern. They are excited to come to Coatesville and join with us to work on this restaurant project. So we've closed that agreement about a week ago. And that allowed us to move forward with President's Bank. And at this time, we're looking for that increase. That increase is above the 420,000, as we just assume that we may look to roll in our own financing at some point, which was done by ourselves to purchase the property, and any other small costs, which would get us to that 700,000 number. So we are looking to we are looking to start working in the next few weeks. We've already done, some light renovation, just getting back to the original flooring, getting rid of trash, stuff like that, so that we're ready for construction once final plans are submitted to the city.
Okay, I would, do you have any questions on what's going? I would make a motion to approve their request based on them reimbursing the RDA for the cost of preparing the documentation for this request. Is that agreeable with you, Wayne?
Yes.
Okay. So I would make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. So you're good to go, Lane.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Lane, that, I know you can't see them, but the board voted 4-0 for that. And I will be back in touch with you later this week. If you could let me know when exactly in November your lender is looking to do that and what specific papers they're looking for in terms of memorializing that consent, whether or not they want a letter like the RDA previously did, or they want something else, let me know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye.
Citizens' comments. Next meeting, November 15th. And I would say we are adjourned. Thank you.